there. Red carpet goes to STYLETAINMENT. I want to start off by saying she is a producer, stylist, entertainment designer, and an author with a very distinct point of view. She's a breast cancer survivor, an inspirational and upliftment leader. She is newly appointed New Jersey State Chair, USA, Oneness and Wisdom, under the auspice of All Ladies League. She is a mother, a friend, a mentor, and the little girl who dared to dream. If you have ever been in a position of thinking about quitting on your dreams, don't. I repeat, don't. Take a page out of her book. It is, as Miss Hattie said, a must read. Because Missouri is the poster child of never giving up. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce to you the visionary, my mentor, and the force behind the dream, Missouri.
We are doing this for the first time, holding this breast cancer panel discussion because we deem it necessary. I have a lot of young ladies that are in my life that have been asking questions, and I thought, what a great way to answer some of those questions by having this panel discussion. So I'm going to be introducing our panelists in a few minutes, but I want to just bring about some important facts. So each year in the United States, about 264,000 cases of breast cancer are diagnosed in women and about 2,400 in men. About 42,000 women and 500 men in the United States die each year from breast cancer. Black women have a higher rate of breast cancer than white women. The past 2 years, we have honored 17 breast cancer survivors at our annual gala. We are blessed today to have in our audience some of our 2023 breast cancer survivors, which you met earlier. And we are overwhelmed with joy to present this amazing panel of thriving breast cancer survivors. So ladies and gentlemen, as we flow through this discussion, please save your questions. We will open up the Q&A towards the end. Our first panelist is Ms. Hattie Smith. Please come forward. Sit here. Two-time cancer survivor and advocate leader. Our second panelist is Ann Pepper, Human Resources Executive, breast cancer survivor of other forms of cancer. Ms. Tanya Turner, Pharmaceutical Commercial Sales Director, Life and Health Coach, breast cancer survivor and advocate. And Ms. Audrey Walker, Director, Housing Operations, breast cancer survivor, founder and president of Healing Green BCA organizations. Ladies, welcome to the panel. We are so excited to have you here and to have this discussion. Another fact, breast cancer is more common than realized. According to the American Cancer Society, ACS, breast cancer is the most common cancer among American women, second only to skin cancer. The average United States woman has about a 12% risk of breast cancer in her lifetime. That means 1 out of 8 women will develop this disease. In 2018, it was estimated that over 330,000 new cases of breast cancer would be diagnosed. Think about that. And at this time, I'm just going to have Ms. Hattie Smith share her story.
Before I begin, I just want to say thank you again for taking time out of your schedule, particularly on a day like today. But as Missouri said, it's raining outside, but we're bringing the sunshine. Amen. So thank you. I am a 2-time breast cancer survivor. I was diagnosed, oh my goodness, 17? That sounds right. 17 years ago with a slow-growing type of cancer, DCIS. And after going to 3 different doctors, which one of them told me the wrong information. So one thing I will say, if you don't forget anything, don't forget this. If you get any type of disease or illness, get a second opinion. So that's what I want to push to people today, get a second opinion. If I had not gotten a second opinion, I would have gotten some treatments that I did not need. So I'm grateful to the Lord, and I'm grateful for the knowledge that I had at that time to do that. When it had the second opinion, then actually I took it a step further and went and got a third opinion. Just wanted to make sure everybody was aligned, and they were. So I wound up getting a right mastectomy at that time with reconstruction surgery with my own tissue. So I got a tummy tuck out of the deal, so I was okay with that. Moving on, I celebrated my 10-year anniversary at work. I was working at the time, and we had a big party, a big bash, and the following year, I went for my 6-month mammogram, and they said I was fine, I'll see you in 6 months. And for some reason, when I received that letter in the mail that everybody gets after they get a mammogram, I was led to lay down and do a self-exam. And to my surprise, I actually felt something in my left breast. It blew me away. I did not know. First of all, I have dense breasts, if anybody knows what that means, that you don't really usually feel lumps or bumps in those types of tissues, but I did. So that was kind of nervous, but I didn't say anything to anyone. I laid down, I was able to go to sleep, I woke up, I did another self-exam and felt it again, and I was like, okay, this is not good, let me go call my breast surgeon. So long story short, she was the type of doctor that is an advocate for her patients, did not hesitate to get me into her office, and literally did a biopsy on the spot based on my history. And unfortunately, 3 days later, she called me and told me I had a different type that I had 11 years ago. This one was actually more aggressive, and I needed to make a decision pretty quickly. So with the help of God and my husband and my children, I prayed. I can't speak for others, but I know I prayed about it. I said, Lord, order my steps, because I did not want to do what she recommended. So I needed to pray about that, and I did. And I believe that he led me to do the right thing for me. Everybody's situation is different. So I wound up having a left mastectomy with, again, reconstruction surgery. And that was 6 years ago. And right now, I'm here to tell my story. So I am just grateful. Thank you so much. I'm grateful to be here. Since both diagnoses, I basically am an advocate leader for breast cancer awareness. I don't have a problem sharing my story with anyone. People call me now because they know my story, if they've been diagnosed or if they have a family member that's been diagnosed. And I simply share what I've learned along the journey. Everybody's situation is different, so I always end my story with, regardless of what I tell you, regardless of what others tell you, you need to do what you feel is right for your body. This way, you're not going to have any regrets moving forward. And even if you do have regrets, you'll be all right. You know what I mean? Because it is your decision. So don't let others push you into doing something that you feel maybe you should not have done. The other thing I want to push to people is to know your body, right? Do your self-exams. If something doesn't feel right, and you go to the doctor, and he or she tells you, oh, it's fine, or it's nothing, and you don't feel that that is the case, then you go someplace else until they hear what you have to, what is going on. Because a lot of times that does happen. So basically, in a nutshell, that's me. I mean, like I said, I'm a 2-time breast cancer survivor. I'm an advocate leader. I'm a fundraiser. I don't have a problem asking people for money, especially if I feel they have it. You know, and corporations, a lot of these corporations have that type of philanthropy office, but people have to be willing to ask. And I've found a lot of times, even when I was working at Johnson & Johnson, I never forget this one time. I actually went to a girl that I knew in human resources and inquired with her about fundraising for an organization that I was supporting at that time. She said, oh yeah, you want to go talk to so-and-so, so-and-so. But I'm going to tell you right now, he's not going to give you anything. So I kind of just looked at her. I'm like, what? What's his name again? And she told me. I looked him up. I made an appointment with him, 20-minute meet and greet, told him who I was, told him what I was trying to do. Guess what? He came through for me. So I'm just saying, don't be afraid. Ask people, especially if you're raising money for something that you firmly believe in. Okay? Thank you.
Such wonderful sharing, Hattie. Thank you so much. It's really, I'm learning so much from this woman. You know, when you say you believe in something, it's more than just saying you believe it. But if you really want to make a difference, you have to do something. You know, and she's been through so much, going through breast cancer herself, which really does give her the inspiration to help others. So we appreciate her.
Okay, so fact 2, ethnicity plays a role. There's 2 parts here.
Breast cancer is more common among women and African American. I'm sorry, let me start over. Breast cancer is more common among white women and African American women, while the rates for white women has stabilized. The rates of breast cancer in African American women has increased slightly in recent years. You guys know that? The increase with African American women. And so at this time, we're going to ask Pam Pepper to please share her experience.
Hattie, you said that you have no problem telling your story. I'm the opposite end.
Okay.
This is my first time actually sharing my story. When Missouri asked me to be on the panel, I was very honored, but until today I didn't realize how nervous I would be as to what really she expected me to do, but I'll do my best. So I was diagnosed with breast cancer almost 12 years ago, but my cancer journey actually began when I was a very young girl. When I was 7 years old, my mother went to the hospital for a couple of weeks. No one told me why. But when she came home, her oldest sister came to live with my family for several months, and all I knew was that my aunt drove my mother to doctor's appointments every day for several months. And it wasn't until a couple of decades later that I actually found out she was taking my mother to her breast cancer radiation treatments. But that was the 1960s, and in that era, no one talked about cancer. It was the big C. It was taboo. It was absolutely a forbidden topic of conversation, and actually my mother never discussed it with me, only my aunt. It was a very mysterious and frightening time. When I look today at how far we have come, it's really pretty amazing that now we can have a panel like this where we can share our experiences and it's no longer a forbidden topic. So I think that's pretty incredible. So as I said, my journey started when I was 7, and in my story, if I fast forward about 15 years, shortly after I graduated college, I had my first breast surgery. It was for a non-cancerous mass, but it was at the time that I was having that surgery that my mother's oldest sister decided that she ought to tell me that my mother had had breast cancer. Again, in the 60s and 70s, no one talked about family history. It just wasn't done. But she did tell me, and then until then I didn't know that I was at high risk. And Jewish women of Ashkenazic descent, which I'm part of that group, are particularly high risk. So it was important information that my aunt shared with me. One message that I have for everyone is that if you don't know your family history, you need to know it. And nowadays, it's okay to ask, not like when I was growing up where it was forbidden. So if you don't know, it's really important because then you know what your risk factors are, and that will guide you, as Hattie said, to make the decisions that we need to make. And thank you, Missouri, for bringing this panel together today so that all of us can share our experiences and our thoughts and our advice. So back to my story. So about 12 years ago, because I was in a high-risk category, I was being screened more thoroughly than just the once-a-year mammograms. And 12 years ago, when I got my first diagnosis, I felt like my world actually shattered into pieces. But I'm happy to say that along the way of my journey, I was able to learn how to put those pieces back together again and to find some glue to hold the pieces together. And I really needed that glue because after breast cancer, then I had other forms of cancer, and I really needed to have that glue to hold myself together because subsequently I had thyroid cancer, then I had skin cancer, and a little over a year ago I had lung cancer. So there are a lot of things that I discovered along the way. After being diagnosed with breast cancer, Missouri and I met in 2014 in a fundraiser called Dancing with the Survivors, and all the women who were dancing were breast cancer survivors. And through that, I rediscovered my love of dance, mostly ballet and ballroom dancing. And through dancing, I've evolved from initially feeling like a breast cancer victim, then into a survivor. And today, I feel like a 5-time cancer warrior. And my message that it's important, on a difficult journey to find things that give you joy. And for me, dancing really helped me with my physical recovery as well as my mental recovery. I also found that through dancing, I could set goals for myself in terms of things I wanted to learn and things I wanted to do. And those goals helped me to always keep looking forward in a positive kind of way. And when I look back, I can say that although cancer has been a major part of my life since I was 7 years old, it hasn't prevented me from living my life and doing things such as dancing that I find so joyful. Also, I set a lot of goals for myself in terms of my family. At the time I was diagnosed, my 3 children were still in high school and college, and so I set a lot of goals in terms of attending their graduations. I attended 2 out of the 3 marriages for my 2 daughters, still waiting for my son. But it's one of my points is that having goals, whatever they might be, and persevering, working towards those goals has really been kind of part of my navigating my journey. And in summation, what I can say is that I found that things like dancing and music, for me, were the things that helped cure cancer well above and beyond the things that my doctors and nurses and therapists could do for me. So I think as Missouri talked about, having a goal, having a dream, and working towards it is very important. For for me, has been very important for me in terms of overcoming and navigating my journey all these years.
We thank you for trusting this process. We never know the lives that we touch by the things that we say, so just grateful that you are here to share your story. Thank you, thank you. So fact 3, it can be more than a lump. It can be more than a lump. A breast lump is the most common symptom, but it's not the only one that signals breast cancer. Signs can also include swelling of parts or all of the breast, skin irritation, nipple retraction, redness, scaliness or thickening of the nipple or breast skin, nipple discharge, other than breast milk. Women often find symptoms on their own. That's why it's so important to know your breasts. Look and feel normal. You need to know how your breast looks and feel normal so that you will find something if it's abnormal. That's so, so very important. So we want to give the mic to Ms. Tanya to share her story. Thank you.
I'm a 4-year breast cancer survivor. And this will be the first time I'm telling my story outside of a one-on-one individual conversation. And when Missouri called me and asked if I could join the conversation, that was a while ago. And as I kind of got closer, I knew the day was going to come where it was time to be able to just have a conversation. And I kept putting off over the last week trying to prepare for this discussion because I knew that meant that I would have to go back and revisit that whole time. I actually forgot the type of diagnosis. I forgot all that pain and all that craziness that I went through. I had been on in my life. I was good. And so for you to move on and to have forgotten that I never thought I would go into that struggle and that pain, it's the most amazing thing. So I want to give God all the praise. God said you wouldn't leave me, you would hold on to me through the pain, through the problem, and you said this too will pass, and this too shall pass. So let's just talk a little bit about the journey. So I was diagnosed with breast cancer called invasive, it's called ILC, so invasive lobular carcinoma, and it was on my left breast, and it's an estrogen-based cancer, and it's estrogen that kind of feeds off of cancer cells and continues to grow. So the way to eventually stop that is to get on estrogen type of medicines to keep the estrogen down, so you can fully try to block it all the way through so it won't come back. But my story starts as a little girl as well. My mother was diagnosed with cancer and she was only 25, so this was in the 60s. She found, the story I understand it to be, she found cancer in the left breast. She was rushed to Harlem Hospital in New York City at that time. As they were trying to figure out what was going on in the left breast. They removed the left breast, it already spread to the right breast. By the time they got to the right breast, it had already spread to her brain. So from the time she was diagnosed, it was about 6 months before she passed away, leaving behind myself, my sister, and I was 3 years old, and a brother who was 2. So we then, my maternal grandmother, her mom, began to raise us on top of the 2 kids that she had. And of course, my father was a very young man at that time. So, life goes on. I share that story because the panel had mentioned, history and background is important. Knowing that I may have a high risk factor, I started going through all my mammograms very early and going through my OBGYN and just trying to check myself. So I stayed on top of that. There's a reason why I caught my cancer pretty early. I was just in stage 2 that allowed me to kind of move through pretty quickly. Because of my family history, not only my mother, but my grandmother also had breast cancer, and they both are in heaven looking down on me and very excited about the science and how far we've come, because I've had all these years to raise my kids and kind of watch them reach that next level. So every time a milestone birthday would come, whether it was 20s or 30s or 40s, I really would get pretty scared. I was thankful for God that I had a lot more time than my mom had, but I was raising a little boy and a little girl at that time. And I would celebrate my birthday because I was 33, or then 43, and then here comes 50. 50, and all my birthdays, I celebrate by going to the doctors and I get all my mammograms. So at 50, I was at my OBGYN, and she's doing regular breast exam, and I know they've started pushing the OBGYN to really yearly now to 2 years, and I wouldn't let her do that. So it was yearly, and in that conversation, and she was checking my breast, and she says, "What's going on here?" She says, and she took my hand and put it on where it was a lump on the left side of my breast. She says, "I want you to go and get a 3D mammogram." I did that in the next 2 days. The mammogram, the lady said, "Oh, there's nothing there." I said, no, there's something there, because, and I tried to feel for it, but I couldn't feel for it. So I'm a woman that checks myself in the shower. I've done everything I could. No, this is the type of lump. The only way you would have found it, I got to lay down. So I laid down on the couch, put my arm behind my head. I had to reach down, and it's not on the breast, it's up, kind of up under the arm. And I said, "Here it is." And so I did this in the doctor's office. They put a marker on it. Let's try it again. Nothing. I said, "Well, I'm not leaving it until we really find it." Went to an ultrasound. This is the advocacy. And so went through an ultrasound. They brought all the doctors in. Boom, we found something. And then it now meant to the doctors, get a biopsy, got the biopsy, and then to get that call in that waiting period. That's kind of where I want to start. I share the details because I think that's what's helpful, what my friends are saying, so you'll know what to look for. And I'm thankful to my OB/GYN for being on top of it. But when I got the diagnosis, I remember sitting in my kitchen, and my son was about 13 years old. And he was the only one in the house. And I get the phone call, and they said, "Okay, Mrs. Turner, we found a lump. It's malignant. We do have cancer. We need to get you in here immediately." So I don't care how much risk factor or whatever goes on, it's always, you think the worst. It's because of that symptoms and just everything. So of course I went into a panic attack and tried to calm myself. And I remember this 13-year-old kind of coming into the kitchen, and I'm thinking, "Oh God, I can't scare him." And he reaches behind me and he just starts to hold me. And I take a deep breath, but we cry together, and then my daughter walks in, she watches the whole thing. And she says, "Oh, I know what's going on." We all three of us are embracing. And she says, "Mom, we got this. We got it." So she turned into me, and I turned into her. So anyway, at the end of the day, within less than 6 months, I had my diagnosis, I had my biopsy, I had my treatment team, I had my professional team, I had picked my surgeon. I picked the best team ever, and that's what the books are telling you to do. Take a few minutes, get that support circle around you, and then trying to figure out what that looks like. Because you're not, no matter how, I've been in pharmaceuticals for almost 30 plus years. So I know all the drugs and this, that, and the other. And I couldn't even remember a thing when it happened to me. I just can't put it together, it's fog. So you need someone that is there, that can support you, that can advocate for you, write things down, and make sure you pick the right team of folks. If it don't feel right, you don't go with it. I was fortunate to have some really good health insurance and be still part of the pharmaceutical industry at that point in my life, and living in an area where there was a lot of resources. And so I got connected with the Bucks County Breast Friends Group, where I ended up meeting who also mentored me through my journey. And so you always know it's a small world. But within that, I had a wonderful team. My learning in this team is that we chose to do a bilateral nipple-sparing mastectomy because of my risk factor, although I only found it in the left breast. What I've understood in the Black community, because I've asked, so I'm living in a predominantly white area, and I am being serviced by predominantly white, more affluent area at that time. I was getting service at a whole nother level based on the type of work I do. I'm just putting out, keeping it real, from all the top doctors. And it was clearly not a death sentence for me. And I asked them, because I had family members and I had friends, why, when it's breast cancer in the Black community, and when it happens to us, it feels like a death sentence? All the things I just told you within that 3 or 4 months, what I pulled together and kind of read books and got the right doctors, they told me to take them both off. Often, and we typically are afraid to take our breasts off, ladies. We're afraid. Okay? I was looking for me. I was excited about the reconstruction down the line. I figured I'd go up a couple sides and I'll figure that all out. So I just got that in the back of my mind. But I took them both off. Thank God I did. Because when they went back to look at both breasts, it was in the right breast too. I would have been here a little later on, going through that again. They also took lymph nodes, gave them permission to do that, and during that period, so now you finish a 4-hour surgery, right? So this is why you want to try to stay healthy, so you can get in there and get them all done. You come out, now you got that waiting period, which is another 30 days to make sure that it's spread throughout your body. And I remember that was Mother's Day 2018. I had gotten the call that it had not spread. And so now you start to go through, praise God, and so now you start to go through, you still have the tubes, you're still kind of trying to go through the healing, and you also have an expander. Does anyone know what an expander is? Yes, I see some nods and some not. An expander, so I opted in a 4-hour surgery to get both breasts removed, allow them to take lymph nodes, right, which also you can end up getting lymphedema as a result of that. But that's all right, I ended up getting lymphedema later on. However, I was able to make sure at the end of the day I didn't have the cancer spread. But I did that, and I had to put a expander, it's like a metal rod that starts to push your skin out so you can start to form new breasts very naturally, right? And so they'll take skin from other places, but there is an option. Everybody can do it very differently. And so for me, I wanted the expander because what I wanted to start is to push that skin out, because over time they will insert you with saline and then replace it with silicone a little later on, which requires another surgery. Give me a little detail, right? Because I think it's helpful for us to all understand what that looks like and what that means. But make sure you have options and make sure the doctor gives you all the different options. For me, it all worked. Yes, it was painful, but the way to rise for pain for me, I went through a little bit of holistic healing and science kind of at the same time. So a lot of meditation, a lot of yoga, and for me, it was life strategy coach. So the life strategy coach gives a meaning behind what cancer actually looks like. And I truly believe that those of us who go through the journey, and as weird as this may sound, for me, it gave me a whole nother vision in life. it actually became my blessing. And I am healthier. I have found myself. I know who I am. I know what I like. I am feeling so much better than I ever have in my entire life. And so when God asks you to sit still, you get this life coach. The life coach allowed me to go a little deeper and pull out my little girl. So although I had things, I was successful, I had the house, the husband, the whole thing, the 2 kids, none of that makes a difference when everything else is on. And so what I've learned in my next chapter, I'm divorced. I ended up raising my 2 young adults for he was 15, she was 18. We went through, building what our new life was going to look like together after cancer. They both ended up having life-threatening freak accidents at the same time. You'll read about it. There's in one of Missouri's write-ups that she actually has. But I want to move forward. So I'm healing from cancer. I'm going through a divorce. I'm dealing with 2 teenagers going through what they needed to go through, and then trying to help them heal. So had to leave my job, and then as we come out of it, and then you got the pandemic, and then you got Black Lives Matter, the whole world is kind of falling apart. So you're coming out of it. The good news is here we are today. Everybody has healed. We are all healed. We took the time to heal. We took the time to fight. We just kept, God first, and we learned that it was all about love and cheering and sitting in to really understand what it was all about. And because I was carrying 2 kids that was physically disabled is the reason why I got lymphedema in my left arm, because what they asked you to do is they asked you to exercise and heal that arm. And I remember going back to my oncologist and I said, okay, look at the damage I did in my arm. Says, yeah, but you saved your kids. And so where we are today, I tell my story because my kids are part of my story. That scared 13, 14-year-old that was holding me. Here he is, 19 years old, 2nd year at Drexel, pursuing his master's degree, just living as a lovely, lovely young man. And my daughter graduated from Howard University. She's in her 2nd year master's degree at Georgetown. So life goes on. I'm a single mom. I'm gone.
I just wanted to share this real quickly. When I got out of the shower and I found the lump in my right breast, I knew right away that there was something, and I went to the doctor the next day. They sent me to the Cancer Institute, and talking to the surgeons and all the kind of blah 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 noise that you hear that you have here. And but it wasn't until they ordered MRIs for both breasts that they found early ductal in the left breast. Didn't show up in a mammogram, didn't show up in ultrasound. So I always tell ladies, find something in one breast, double check both, because you just really don't know. So thank you, Tanya. Okay, so fact 4. No risk factor doesn't mean no cancer. According to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, most women with breast cancer have no known risk factors. They don't have a history of this disease in their families. They don't. So we're going to let Audrey share her story.
Hi, I'm Audrey Walker, and I am so sorry I'm following Tanya. Movies away. But my story is, again, I too, I had breast cancer in my family. My mother had breast cancer, my sister had breast cancer. Unfortunately, her sister, and this was back in the early 70s, my sister found it late, and unfortunately, back then too, they were, when you had the hot flashes, they would give you estrogen and things like that, which was like the worst thing that they could have been giving my aunt. And so it's believed that that is what caused her cancer too. She had it, and very quickly she passed, probably about 3 months later after she found out she had breast cancer. She and my mother were twins, so she told my mother on her deathbed, Dorothy, please get a mammogram. My mother had never had a mammogram, no problem. And my mother said, you know, she was in a coma. She said, no, please, just promise me. So my mother did. My mother came home. Her sister lived in Indiana. We lived in New Jersey. She came home. Called the doctor, did what her sister asked her. Had a mammogram, and they found a tumor on her breast. And she was in her 60s at that time. So they removed the tumor. No, actually, she had a mastectomy. And fortunately, my mother, she lived to be 83. So 20-some years later, because her sister made her go and have that mammogram, she lived to be 83. I'm a woman of faith. And of course, you know, I knew it was in my family, but of course, I'm praying, you know, Lord, you know, bind it up from the family. It's not going to happen to anybody else, you know. So, one day I'm actually was putting on a bra and somehow felt my breast and I felt a lump. Whoa, what is that? My daughters were standing right there. Mom, what? I said, oh, no, it's okay. So I called my doctor the next day and told him, and he immediately had me to go and have a mammogram. We had a mammogram. Went into the you know, I had been having mammograms since I was 30 because it was in my family. Now I'm at the age of 47 when I go and have this mammogram. And they found in the mammogram that I had. My doctor calls me like 7 a.m. the next morning. He says, I want you to go and see a surgeon. He said they found something strange on your breast. So I went to work that morning all day and really anxious, but I'm saying in my mind, I'm sure that it's not cancer. I go to the doctor and he showed me on the screen where I actually had something called calcifications across my entire right breast. Calcifications are supposedly a precursor to possibly getting cancer. He said, well, he suggested, he didn't give me any options. He said, I think you definitely should have a mastectomy. So, and I was really like, I felt kind of rejected by my God. I mean, that was the first thing, like, I couldn't even believe it. Like, no, you know, I'm praying against this thing, you know, and I was in awe, I was in shock, but I don't think I was in, I didn't feel fear at that point. I just said, you know, okay, I'll go and have the mastectomy, and I think because my mother had one, it made it really easy for me to say that. So I went, had surgery, had a mastectomy, had reconstructive surgery. You know all about reconstructive surgery. And I was good. Like, okay. I went back to work. Felt pretty good. I mean, I went through, I guess maybe about 4 or 5 weeks of healing. Went back to work. And I was good. So I'm laying in the bed one night and I'm feeling like when you get surgery on things, I don't know about you, but you're always just kind of touching around. You know, I'm touching, and I felt another lump in the same breast. Wow. And whoa, what is this? You know, so I thought, well, you know what? This is not cancer because they told me that they had actually removed the breast before it was cancer. And I thought maybe, you know, with the silicone gel that they put in there, or whatever, that's what it was. So a year later, this is 2004, I was age 47. A year later, I go to my GYN for my annual checkup. And I told her, you know, I feel something here, but I'm almost sure it's just the reconstruction. I lay down, she feels it, and she says, Audrey, I need you to go directly back to your surgeon. She said, because this feels like something that, you know, might be something wrong. So I went back to the surgeon, and he felt it, and it was like he sent me directly to get another MRI, right? MRI. And he called me the very next day, and he said, I'll have you in here tomorrow. They said he moved so many things around because even my doctor was shocked and surprised at the fact that this was there after what he had done. He did say, you know, there's breast cells that's all in the back and things like that. But I said, well, no, I said, I just can't accept this. Why am I here again, you know? And the only thing that he could say to me, he said, cancer is very tricky. So they gave me a biopsy, and it was cancerous. So I was in surgery 2 days later. He removed the tumor. This time, I had HER2 positive is what they deemed my cancer, and that's pretty bad. That's like very aggressive. There's something HER2 negative. I'm not going to go into that, but I actually went to the doctor yesterday just to sit with another woman who has been diagnosed, and she was diagnosed HER2 negative, which is a whole lot better, for the lack of another word, than HER2 positive. HER2 positive, when I was diagnosed in 2004, there's something called Herceptin that had just gotten through trials to be able to give to persons that had breast cancer. And anyone that was HER2 positive before that time, science had just not found what could help you to live with that. But they had, and it was that, and anyway, they talked to me about, I had a great team. I had a great team of doctors, great oncologists, great surgeon, great insurance, because that's a key to better health care. So they, where was I? The HER2 positive. Okay. And then so they removed the lump, and for 6 weeks I was on chemo, and then for a year and a half I took something called Herceptin. Now with the chemo, it's like, okay, you're on chemo, which what I was on, and I forget the name of it, but there's a young lady over there that would know, it's like this red tube. And this is something else I didn't know. There are several chemos. I thought chemo, there was one chemo. There are several chemos. But I was put on one of the more potent ones. And, you know, I kept telling the nurses, I always tried to keep an up attitude. They said, well, you lose your hair. I said, I'm going to be the one that you tell that she did not lose her hair. And they all looked at each other like, okay. Well, 2 or 3 days later, hair started coming out in my hand. And I said, okay, well, they kept saying, you want to get your head shaved? I said, oh, no. But then I started waking up at night, hair on the pillow. Hair, when you did, it would just start getting very thin. So Robert Wood Johnson was the hospital that I cared for me. And they had a person that she would advocate with young women that was losing their hair. She would actually come to their homes and shave their head. So I opted for them to do that because it was very hard watching the hair just come out little by little. So I kept telling my husband, I said, wow, this is going to be something, you know. Bald, right? And he said, you'll be fine, hair is just hair, don't you worry about it, you'll be good. So the day before the woman came to shave my head, my husband comes from work. I open the door, and my husband's head is shaved.